And thank you for coming in. Listening to this morning's committee meeting and to my colleagues and answers and that, I'm just actually a little confused because the dialogue is so far from the experience that parents bring to me as a TD and as representatives in this House. We hear about every part of the public sector, about all public services, and this area comes up again and again as honestly by far the most challenging, and also because of its impact on young people. And there's so many different aspects to that. Appointments being cancelled without proper notice to the parents. Just the effect of that for a parent, for example. One of the parents who was in here with a couple of weeks ago, they have an appointment. They have to prepare their child for that appointment. They have to take them out of school. They have to prepare them psychologically. And then they turn up and they were told that the appointment was, they were supposed to get a text to say that the appointment was cancelled. That's happened with a number of parents who have appeared before this committee. And we can give you examples, but it's just not okay. Can you imagine how difficult that is from the parent's perspective? The coordination of services from the parent's perspective, you have your job. But I have parents who are trying to organise school buses to aftercare, who are trying to organise weekend or overnight respite care, all very, very difficult to do while managing their child and while trying to communicate with CNDTs where they don't get responses and they don't get engagement. And from the parent's perspective, they don't care which arm of the state is dealing with these different things. They have one child, one set of difficulties that need resolution, and there's no proactive management of that. Not only is there no proactive management of that, sometimes it can be very difficult to get a response at all, or your appointment gets cancelled, for example, at last. So I'm telling you, as a public representative dealing with all of the aspects of the public service, that this is the least satisfactory because of its inefficiency, because of how it fails to respond to parents, and because of the impact on that on children. I hear now what you're saying about the assessment of need not being needed. That would be a huge relief to parents who, have been told universally, in my experience, and I hear other members saying the same thing, that they have been told that is essential and has delayed other things for them. So it's interesting to have that clarity this morning. So can I just talk through it as though I were a parent, right? So I have a concern about my child. Take them to the GP. The GP says, look, we may have. It may be that you need to get an assessment for autism. It may be that you need speech and language therapy. But just talk me through now what I can expect in CDNG 3, which is the area that covers my area, where I have children waiting for therapeutic services for 3 and 4 years. Talk to me now about the waiting lists, well after post-COVID. Tell me, what is the timeline from the moment I identify a difficulty with my child to them actually getting services on a regular basis? And I note that you've said about recruitment being a challenge. Just tell me, how many therapists do you think you need? Exactly how many are you short? And exactly how many are in the pipeline for 2023 and 2024, please? So we break them into two. The timeline, for me as a parent, turning up, reaching out to you for the first time, I need help for my child. Mm-hmm. What's the timeline in CDNG 3?
Example of CHO9.
I can maybe give a response in relation to CHO9.
Okay. I'm in CHO6, but yeah.
We can't give a specific to a CHO, but we can find information. But
okay,
Graham
we'll be able to test
on
it across the board. But just give me so I come to you the first time. Just tell me what do I need? What do I, as a parent, what do I need, and what's the timeline in relation to it?
So you would come into your GP. It could be the referral could be through a public health nurse or any referral route. You can also self-refer in. There is a standard referral form that is one referral form for the entire country, and that would be available in any health centre, and most referrers would have the access to that.
So I go to the GP 1st of January. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You make a referral in. That referral then is screened and processed. So the referral can be, there may be additional information sought, particularly if there is complexity of need that would require that referral to a CDNT as opposed to a primary care service.
Okay, so how long does that take? When should a parent expect to hear back if they need more additional information?
Again, it varies, but you would expect most services would hold a referral meeting on a monthly basis where referrals are reviewed, screened. Do we have enough information? Do we need additional information? And write back. If there's no additional information required, there should be a response back to state whether you are accepted onto the team or whether the referral doesn't meet criteria and may be more suitable, for example, for primary care.
So I've contacted you on the 1st of January in relation to this. You've had a monthly meeting at the end of January, or let's say the end of February. When does the parent hear back?
They would expect to hear back within, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks of that referral meeting. Something should go out in the post.
So if a parent comes to me and I can tell them, look, there'll be a referral meeting at the end of the month that you submitted, or even the following month allowing for administrative leave, and then they will hear back within 2 to 3 weeks. So that's all within a 3-month period.
All things being equal, that is what would be expected.
That's your standard. Okay.
To
Okay.
hear
So what
back
happens
by
after that then?
Then you may be admitted on, if let's say you're onto the CDNT waiting list. It is then it varies area to area how long you would wait.
Indeed, it does.
And usually, when you're accepted onto a referral list, you would be advised of the expected waiting time.
So I have one constituent who was told that his young son is in CDNT 3 has an unknown and indefinite estimated waiting time for therapeutic services. We cannot afford to wait any longer. You don't need me to go on. So go on. Do you get a specified waiting period? Do you get an indefinite waiting period?
Well, I couldn't comment on the individual case because I don't know what's behind that, and certainly we can follow up things related to individual cases, but we would expect that we should be able to provide some, estimation of waiting time based on the existing services, based on the existing numbers on our list. So we do have methods for calculating that. There are also prioritisation schemes. So when a referral is accepted, or if new information comes in and a parent contacts the CDNM, the manager of that CDNT, certain referrals can be prioritised based on published criteria. We have prioritisation policies that are out there. So if a child is in desperate need and needs something, let's say their school placement or even their home placement may be at risk, there is a mechanism for filtering
in emergency
that through
situations. So when things become into a
scheme.
crisis, there's a mechanism for. Okay, so 1st of January.
very
Just
quick
one,
comment.
no, don't mind. 1st of January, I get my back by the end of March, and then depending on, we're not sure about waiting times on the CDNT. Appreciate that they vary. I would argue that my area is less efficient than others, but I still don't have any estimated timeline. Like, is it on average 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months? Like, what are we working towards here?
Well, I think in general, the experience is that families can be waiting anything, on average, 18 to 24 months. But that's not a target. Like, none of us here, Deputy, are saying that that's acceptable or that that's what the quality of the service. We are working towards a model and a delivery system that is much more timely and responsive and is in weeks and months, not and measured in weeks and months and not years.
Because in my experience, it's easily 3 years from all of the parents that I speak to in my area. So on that, then your problem is lack of therapists. I understand.
Yes.
How many are you short? How many do you need, and how many are you short?
Okay, so at the moment we have a vacancy rate of 700. Plus we were allocated funding for an additional 136 posts. So at the moment it's in the region of 830, 850. It's a bit fluid, but in that range.
You have 700 funded posts vacant. Correct. Plus funding for another 136. Correct. So how many are working in total? What's the proportion? What vacancy proportion is that?
It's about 28%.
So you have funding for 836 posts. How many will you have extra of that filled in 2023 and 2024?
Okay, so we have a number of measures that we're progressing. I know you're asking me to give an answer on something that's impossible to answer in terms of a number. My goal is that we'd recruit for all of those. Right, but in reality, so all I can tell you is what we're doing to address it, and there's primarily 2 avenues. First of all, we've recently gone out to all of the staff on the panels. So these are all of this year's graduates who are still in the process of kind of varying stages of recruitment within the HSE system. And we have provided them with information on what working in a CDNT is like. We've created a phone line for people to phone us, and that we can put them in contact with people that they can talk about the pros and cons of working in CDNTs. And a previous a committee member did reference, that it's not always attractive, and we think there are lots of things that can make it attractive. for people, and we're trying to portray that information. The second thing that we're doing is there's an international recruitment campaign that's ongoing at the moment. The Children's Disability Services is one of the priority areas within that, and we're working with colleagues to address issues, including, for example, the registration of those staff. So we can recruit people internationally. In order for them to meet the core requirements, they need supervised placements, and we're working with colleagues to put in place mechanisms to support that.
You have two streams, there are two mechanisms of delivering people. How many do you think it will deliver as new entrants in 2023 and 2024?
At the moment, I can't give you that number.
Because there's 836 funded vacancies, so the money is there. I would rather that you got 200 of them than 2. I'd rather that you got 40 of them than 4. But in any process, there has to be a target and an outcome. I recognise that it's probably unrealistic to hire 836 people next year, but I'd like to know what your management target is. If you have recruitment, if you have your own HR function, they're being paid, they can surely set a target for what they think they can be delivered. If you have international recruitment consultants involved on the other side, they can surely set a target. There must be a target. This is a management process as much as anything else. What's the target? Realistically.
So and I'll come back to you with the precise number. So just bear with me a second. So our HR colleagues are able to advise on the total capacity of the HSE to recruit and provide staffing. So so just bear with me that the numbers I give are broad, and I'll come back with some specifics.
Broad is better than none.
So their estimate is that we can recruit somewhere in the region of 6,500 staff per annum. Roughly.
That's broadly HSE?
That's broadly.
I'm interested in your area.
So of that pro rata, we'd be looking at somewhere in the region of a couple of hundred out of that.
In 2023?
Yes.
So a couple of hundred, because I struggle with you not having an answer, because how are you supposed to plan for the allocation of that staff around the different areas in 2023 and 2024? Okay. Why can't, you talked to the committee about reducing the waiting times for assessments, but I don't know how many is going to be there next year. Is a couple of hundred, 100, 300, 600, where are you going to put them? It just doesn't sound like there's a plan.
Well, no, that's not fair.
So I don't wish to be unfair. Absolutely not. So please tell me, where are they?
So the
how many are you going to have?
The challenge for us in this is that we are not the only service area that's recruiting these staff.
Yes,
they're also being recruited into primary care, into acute services, and there are also other organisations which we fund who are also recruiting those pools of staff. So when we engage with staff on panels or through recruitment, they often have choices about where they go, and they are often electing to go to a service area that interests them more, or which they want to pursue as a career option, which suits them geographically or whatever. So in that sense, I can say to you that our experience has been that we can recruit in any kind of a decent year somewhere between maybe in the region of 150 to 200 staff. But that is assuming that those candidates, in the face of so many choices that they have, take the choice of working in children's services, and they're not always taking that choice.
And how many do you lose each year?
I just want a short reply, and then we're going to go, to the break that I had indicated earlier on. If you could just give it.
We're actually gathering data on at the moment on how many have changed, so I'll come back to you with that number. We actually did some data gathering last week, and I just don't have the outcome of it yet, so I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you.